Good morning. It's Monday, December the 7th, and this is The Drill. Thank you. The prayer of the day. Lord Jesus, through your merciful and for love and forgiveness, you bring healing and restoration to body, soul, and mind. May your healing power and love touch every area of my life, my innermost thoughts, feelings, attitudes, and memories. Pardon my offenses and transform me in the power of your Holy Spirit, that I may walk confidently in your truth and righteousness. Amen. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I am Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. Beware of foundation building. The left may make statements or ask questions that you're tempted to agree with because they sound innocuous, but they will be used as the basis for future demands that trap you. For instance, do Black Lives Matter? Yes. Then reparations. Do Black Lives Matter? Of course. Then single-payer health care. Do Black Lives Matter? Certainly. Then socialism. All of the political mistakes in this country were made by building on a foundation. Title IX, abortion, the pill are all built on the foundation that men are inherently and irredeemably oppressive. The legalization of the recreational use of marijuana is based on the foundation that marijuana and alcohol are both drugs. The Endangered Species Act is based on the fictional foundation that nothing can be known with certainty. Skepticism. Who is the true conservative? First and foremost, he is realistic. Second, he's God-fearing. The true conservative is the man who follows his plan. He's appropriate. He is the person that has the courage of his convictions and is confident in what he knows. He is the person that subordinates politics to reality. He's not selfish, but minds his own business. He acts like an adult. He's patriotic and uses common sense. He's judgmental and moralizes. He refuses to speculate, speaks clearly and definitively, and is not afraid to say no. He's open-minded, asking why, rather than why not. He is consistent, credible, and influential, not ashamed of his existence, and he's better than the socialist. He's a better friend, father, brother, family member, and a better person, period. You have to know that being a true conservative is best, or you're wasting your time. Additional examples of what it means to be a true conservative can be heard by listening to John Cobelt and Ken Champeau on The John and Ken Show on KFI AM 640, Monday through Friday from 2 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. My podcast is short, approximately 5 to 20 minutes long, because shorter podcasts are easier to download and listen to. The biggest socio-political influences in my life are Jesus Christ, my parents, my teachers, Hugh Hewitt, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Ayn Rand, and Dr. Mortimer Adler. My podcast is made available through Spreaker and can be heard on iTunes, Spotify, Google, YouTube, and CastBox. It can be reached at thedrill12@gmail.com. Today, the collapse of parenting. Where do we stand? Conservative vocabulary. How to win. Quote of the day. Bring back. How to think about making a difference. How to think about the Catholic Church. Conservative aphorisms and socialist aphorisms. All that when I come back. Thank you. The collapse of parenting. Let's see. So I was reading a little bit of this the other day, and it is a fascinating book. It's written by a guy that is in my age group. So he's in, see if we can get this thing opened here. Come on. Yeah, we're having some problems. Technical difficulties. So he's is somebody that is in my age bracket. There we go. Okay, so we're. I had already read the introduction, and so now we're into the first. Let me see what we got here. Oh, wait a minute. This isn't it at all. Let me see. Oh, maybe it is. Oh, okay. More technical difficulties. I apologize. There we go. So anyways, about my age group, and he explains, he shows that, and I'm not the only one that notices that there's a difference between parenting today and parenting when I was growing up. And parenting today is more really about parents being or acting like their children's friend than a parent. Parents today suffer from role confusion. Role confusion is a plausible translation of a German word, a term used by German sociologist Norbert Elias to describe the transfer of authority from parents to children. Elias observed that in the second half of the 20th century, Western Europeans became less comfortable with any sort of power differential in social relations. Elias noted that before World War I, power differentials were sharply defined in multiple domains. Between aristocrats and the lower classes, between men and women, between managers and employees, and between parents and children. Throughout the 20th century, and especially in the decades after 1945, people in Western Europe, and in North America too, I might add, became uncomfortable with all such power differentials. With regard to the power differential between men and women, in the name of social justice, women acquired equal rights, though at a varied tempo from one region to the next. Women in Appenzell, Switzerland did not gain the right to vote on local issues until 1991. Regarding the power differential between managers and employees, in recent decades, many companies have abandoned the old-fashioned hierarchical manager system in favor of giving employees a voice. With regard to the former difference of the lower classes to the upper classes, the aristocracy has nearly vanished, at least in the traditional master and servant Downton Abbey sense of the term. And with regard to parents and children, the authority of the parents, and even more significantly, the importance of parents in the lives of their children, has declined substantially. More than 50 years ago, Johns Hopkins, the sociologist James Coleman asked American teenagers this question. Let's say that you had always wanted to belong to a particular club in school, and then finally you were asked to join. But then you found out that your parents didn't approve of the group. Would you still join? In that era, the majority of American teenagers responded, no. They would not join the club if their parents did not approve. In that area, for most kids, the opinion of parents mattered more than the good regard of same-age peers. Not so today. I posted an updated version of the Professor Coleman's question to hundreds of children and teenagers at dozens of venues across the United States between 2009 and 2015. I asked them, if all your friends joined a particular social media site and they all wanted you to join, but one of your parents did not approve, would you still join the site? The most common response to the question was neither yes or no, but laughter. The notion that kids would bother to consult their parents about joining a social media site was so implausible that it was funny. My parents don't even know what Ask.fm is. They would probably think it was some kind of a radio station. So why would I ask them if I should join? If all my friends are joining that site, then of course I am going to join. In American culture today, same-age peers matter more than parents, and parents are reluctant to change the rules, to insist, for example, that time with parents and family is more important than time with same-age peers, because parents are suffering from the role confusion described by Elias. They are unsure what authority they ought to have and how to exercise it. As a result, it's much harder for American parents to teach Fulgham's rules to their kids. And the older the child, the more true that is. In one study, the attitude of American teenagers toward their parents was described as ingratitude seasoned with contempt. As Canadian psychologist Dr. Gordon Nofield has observed, in most cultures, in most times, and at most places, the job of inculturing the child is not primarily the job of the mother and father. The entire culture takes part. Schools, the community, and even popular stories are all in sync in inculcating the basic rules, the fabric of culture. In our time, the schools have retreated from normative instruction about right and wrong in order to focus on academics. It's less controversial to concentrate on phonics than to teach Fulgham's rules or any other absolute notions of good behavior. It's easier for teachers and school administrators to suggest that a child has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and or oppositional defiant disorder and might benefit from medication than to exhort parents to work harder at the task of teaching social skills to their child. The end result, as I've already said, is that parents today shoulder a greater burden than parents in the previous generations, but have fewer resources to do the job. And it goes on, but I'm going to stop here. And I wanted to note that how did we get here is the question. All of the changes that have been brought about, and this has been brought about by the left, and one of the failures of this particular author is in noting that. He, again, is playing the neutral game. He is acting as though we all live in a vacuum, and we don't. We live in a political society in which there is right and left, Democrat and Republican, etc. And so he has to and should have assigned blame. First of all, you need to assign value. Say, is the way things going today better or worse than they were before? They're worse, period. Objectively speaking, they're worse. And we can see that in, again, the way children behave today. They're brattier than ever before. So, and other ways in terms of delinquency and going to jail or going to prison, suffering negative consequences. We can see that. So, who is to blame for that? The left, of course. The left is the one that's wanted to shake up, change, or just simply destroy our culture in favor of a socialist paradise. And they knew that one of the ways that they were going to have to do that was by interfering with the parent-child relationship. The Marxists in our country decades ago, and in the Soviet Union to a certain extent, believed that parents shouldn't have anything to do with raising their children, that it should be done by the state. The parents give birth to a child, turn the child over to the state. The child is put in an institution and then raised to be a good party member and be of value to the state, politically, socially, and otherwise. So it is the left that has created these negative changes in our society. How did they do it? Because the left doesn't believe in anything that's real. And if you don't believe in reality, then how are you going to convince people that they're doing things wrong? Well, the way you do that is not by convincing people or even trying to convince people, but by simply controlling the argument. That's the way the left works. They don't convince anybody of anything. The only reason we have marijuana becoming legal in more and more states in this country and has been passed in the House of Representatives is because the left dominates and controls the conversation about drugs in this country. And if the right wants to reassert itself, it must reassert control over that conversation. And the best way to do that is through universal rights and wrongs. The conservatives in this country have largely given up on universal rights and wrongs. And without it, there's no way that conservatives can win. You just can't win. And that's something for each individual conservative to consider, is that if you communicate in maybes and possiblies and in my opinions and things of that nature, you waffle, you equivocate, then you are going to fail yourself, you're going to fail all conservatives, you're going to fail this country. You need to know, understand, and have confidence in reality and your perceptions of reality, and then communicate that way. Communicate in terms of metaphysical realities, and communicate that knowledge, the truth, that knowledge is, there's not only is there such thing as certainty of knowledge, there's nothing but certainty of knowledge. Nothing but. And you also have to then communicate universal rights and wrongs. You come out and you say something is wrong, and you must say it as a universal. It's wrong for all people everywhere at all times. The way people are raising their kids, by and large, there's some maybe some people like the Amish or whatever that are defying this trend, and that's really what it is a trend. Other than that, everybody else is doing it wrong. People today that are raising their children are doing it in a way that should not be done. It shouldn't have been done 2,000 years ago, shouldn't be done 2,000 years from now, and it shouldn't be done by anybody in any place on the planet. Not in Papua New Guinea, not in New York City, not in Des Moines, Iowa. Okay, that's a universal right and wrong. So you have to communicate in that way if you hope to win. Okay, now the left is going to do whatever it can to discourage you from doing that, and if you do communicate with certainty and about universals, they will do what they can to try to sabotage it. You need to be aware of that, anticipate it, and be able to defeat it. So that was the little clip from the collapse of parenting. So now, where do we stand in terms of, let's say, the election? The President of the United States is still Donald J. Trump. There is an election in Georgia. He had a rally, the President did, in Georgia to get support for the two Republican incumbents in the race, and apparently that rally was a tremendous success, as his rallies usually are. We still have the communist flu, but there is a vaccine on the horizon. And in that regard, in California in particular, I don't know how it's going around the rest of the country, but there's all kinds of spikes of the coronavirus, and the politicians are panicking, and we're back to a shutdown kind of situation where the governor has declared that as of, I guess it's 11:59 last night, then we're back to a situation where you can only have 20% capacity in grocery stores and other places. And so we've basically gone back to March, which really says that what? That their way of handling this coronavirus, or as I like to call it, the communist flu, is a failure. That mask wearing is a failure. That maintaining a distance is a failure. That all it really is a superstition. It's magic. You wear the magic mask, and magically you will be kept from getting the virus. Well, tell that to all the people that are in ICUs in California today. So that's what's going on here. Now, there's again the hope is that there's going to be the vaccine coming soon. It's already been approved in Great Britain, and it was also approved in the Middle East. I believe the UAE approved it the other day. So that's coming. In the meantime, businesses are being shut down or threatened with shutdown, are told to close their doors, et cetera, et cetera. And so the question is, where is the second stimulus? And that's what people are waiting for. That's why they're not out in the street tearing apart their governments, because that's the only thing. The hope of a stimulus is the only thing keeping people, again, from just basically physically overthrowing the governments. Right now, there's little leakages. That used to be solidarity in the state, and now there is no solidarity anymore amongst the ruling class. Governor Newsom declared, well, we're going to have such and such shutdown at 11:59 on Sunday, blah, 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 blah. And every sheriff's department in the state has basically flipped him off and said, well, if you're going to, we're not going to enforce that. We're not going to go around to stores and places and cite people for violating, not wearing masks or not be social distancing or whatever. We're not going to participate. It's on you. The governor retaliated by suggesting, of course, he doesn't have the absolute, he doesn't have the guts to come out and make the threat explicitly, but implicitly the threat is you won't get funds. We'll cut off your money supply if you go ahead and defy the ruling of the Mr. Ruling Class, Governor Newsom. And we had one guy, sheriff in San Bernardino, my hero of the day, who basically said F the governor. He didn't use those words, but that was the essence of it. He said, we will not be bullied, we will not be intimidated, and we're not going to be used as the government's muscle. Good for him. Somebody that understands what a constitutional government is all about. So it's all starting to fall apart. Shutdown number one, fine. People are willing to be cooperative. Shutdown number two, people have reached their limits. Okay, They're sick and tired of it. There's people that are about on the verge of and have lost their businesses for good. There's a restaurant that I liked that I went to for Thanksgiving last year, and it's gone. It's gone from the face of the earth. I was going to make reservations. I looked them up on the internet. Gone for good. So, and that's on the governor. So one of the things that you can do, remember, all of this is not because of the coronavirus or COVID-19. COVID-19 is a virus. It is not a sentient life form. It is a virus. It does not make decisions. So it isn't the virus that caused this. It is politicians' overreaction to the virus that caused this. And very possibly, I still think and believe, even though there's not a lot of evidence yet, but I think it's just as a matter of logic and common sense, ultimately going to come down on the insurance companies. I believe that the insurance companies are the ones that have basically threatened politicians because everybody's insured. Everybody. The state of California has insurance. Cities have insurance. The county has insurance. And that's the ultimate issue here. It's not about beds, how many beds we got, or ICU space. You can make do with that. You can find places to put people. We have ventilators. We have more ventilators than we need. The federal government came out and had various businesses create ventilators. And so we can gear that up again if necessary. But it's not about ventilators. It's always about money. And that the insurance companies are afraid that if everybody starts filing claims, that they're going to end up going broke, which means that they're committing fraud. And that's what the government ought to be doing, is just telling these activists or whoever it is that's whispering in their ear, you're wasting your time, and as soon as this is over, we're going to prosecute you for fraud. That's what should be happening, instead of harassing their constituents. So also, what else we got going on here? We got one of the things is, despite all the political turbulence, that if you're a Republican today, you should be optimistic, because we have a situation where the Republicans have gained seats in the House of Representatives, and the Senate is right now currently in Republican control. And after these two elections, and I got to believe that Georgians are not going to go out of their mind and vote in a couple of communists to the Senate, and they're going to come to their senses and vote in reasonable, rational, realistic people, and the Republicans will keep their majority 52-48. So, in addition to that, Republicans have 27 governorships and Democrats only 23. Republicans control 55 of 99 state legislative chambers. So that means checks and balances. If the unthinkable happens and there's some wackos in the federal government that are taking charge or attempting to, we have a check and balance. We have people that can simply defy the federal government, flip them off, or file a lawsuit and challenge them in court. And when it gets to the Supreme Court, we have a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. So the monster that has been arraigned for shooting 2 Los Angeles sheriff's deputies should, if there's any real justice, get the death penalty. No law enforcement union has been decertified, and no laws shielding officers from prosecution have yet been repealed, and that is dangerous. And it's dangerous because corruption corrupts, and absolute corruption corrupts absolutely. The most unpatriotic piece of legislation, the Patriot Act, is still a law of the land, mocking the Constitution and creating the blueprint for autocratic rule in this pandemic. New York Times v. Sullivan encourages news people to be super citizens who can use unnamed sources to slander and defame people at will without fear of consequences, meaning they can't be fired, they can't be sued, and they cannot be criminally prosecuted. Down with New York Times v. Sullivan. The communist flu continues. And again, over the weekend, the president referred to it as the China, COVID China, or the China COVID, or what. No. Don't do that. If you're a true conservative, don't refer to it that way. All you're doing is opening yourself up to reasonable accusations of racism and xenophobia. It's not the point that it's Chinese. What's the point is that it's communist. It came from communist China, from a communist government that's supposed to be in control and in charge. But they let this one get away. Blue Cross and Kaiser Permanente are two examples of insurance companies that are profiting off of the pandemic and shouldn't be. Governor Newsom enacted a racist scheme to keep Californians locked down indefinitely. When I come back, conservative vocabulary. But first, let me get... There we go. Yeah, when we come back, conservative vocabulary. Thank you. There's more to being conservative than how you vote. If you want to be a true conservative, you have to act, think, talk, and talk like a true conservative. Hence, conservative vocabulary. Words like no, go back, acceptance, mind your own business, from now on, right, wrong, should, good, bad, evil, reality, certainty, morality, beauty, and polity. And these terms are conservative because they're realistic. And if you want to drive the left crazy, put the word should in your vocabulary on a regular basis and talk about what should happen. And they go bananas. They can't stand that word. And they've practically drummed it out of use. How to win. Follow the conservative commandments. Number 1, thou shalt not be neutral. If there's nothing else, no other change that you make in your life towards being a true conservative, you have to change this one. You've been brainwashed, I've been brainwashed, everybody's been brainwashed to be neutral, and that's why they're ineffective. Why the pundits on the radio, particularly Hugh Hewitt, are ineffective. They complain every day about why aren't people excited about this, why aren't people getting upset about that. It's because these slobs think of themselves as like news reporters, and that their job is to be neutral. It isn't. If you're a conservative, your number one job is to promote conservatism. Be a conservative. You're not going to. There's no integrity in being a zero. Number 2, thou shalt not be pragmatic. Number 3, thou shalt not be idealistic. Number 4, thou shalt not be materialistic. Number 5, thou shalt not be skeptical. And number 6, thou shalt not be an activist. When some lefty asks you where all the evidence of election fraud is, the best answer is, you mean you don't see it? When are you going to open your eyes? The quote of the day, quote, compassion is no substitute for justice, unquote, Rush Limbaugh. As conservatives, we make the presumption for the status quo and change only when there's an obvious or prima facie case for change. Slavery and Jim Crow are 2 examples. Therefore, the following terms should be brought back into civilized conversation. Bring back normality, sanity, privacy, property rights, the pre-1970 filibuster, outlawry, single-income households, integration, parenting, and along with it, corporal punishment, the primacy of existence, the certainty of knowledge, and universal rights and wrongs. Bring back principled behavior, masculinity and femininity, Adam 12, John F. Kennedy, the gold standard, pre-HMO medical care, nonprofit news, civil service, the term stupid question. Bring back arguments and fights, the cultural influence of the church and the Boy Scouts, bring back the Lions Club and the Rotary Club, bring back bowling, bring back linear thinking, and bring back smart. Making a difference. You hear that a lot from the left. You can make a difference, which is an insult. Sticking your nose where it does not belong is what making a difference is. The people that whisper in your ear that are trying to get you to take risks that they themselves are unwilling to take. More than likely, you and I are not going to make a difference, at least not a dramatic difference. Presidents and popes will make a dramatic difference. Rank and file voters, taxpayers, and laity will not make a dramatic difference. It's like professional sports. The vast majority of players will not make a dramatic difference. They will have successful careers, mind you, but it will be the Michael Jordans that will make the dramatic difference. Listening to sports stars, rock stars, and movie stars that tell you you can make a difference will only frustrate you and waste the most precious commodity you have, your time. Be of good cheer. The universe is benevolent and success is to be expected, and that means that in the end, conservatives can't lose. We will win in the end. The only question for conservatives is how long do we want to allow all this BS to continue to suffer in the meantime? How to think about being Catholic. And this is from a seminarian, an individual that has gone to Catholic seminary to become a priest. I'm trying to describe my experience in the seminary, dejection at the state of the church, and my latest decision to try to leave. There's something good in these developments, but I don't know how to express it best. Here's what I wrote. In the church, truth and falsehood, good and evil have been replaced by liberal and conservative. I live in fear of being branded with the scarlet letter C. I have to weigh every word and action and measure out the amount of hostility I attract to myself. All the while, we hear constant rhetoric about diversity, inclusivity, and dialogue. They are the tolerant ones. All are welcome, but some are more welcome than others. I feel like I'm being gaslit by the psychologizing of religion. The implication is that sexual deviancy is caused by sexual repression. Those who advocate for obeying the commandments are blamed for people disobeying the commandments. Could there be a connection between those who are advocating for a more liberal sexual morality and those engaging in immoral sexual activity? I don't feel safe asking the question or speaking the answer. I don't feel good about the future of the church. These cases of sexual abuse we are reading about happened before the age of internet pornography. I feel like chastity is discouraged in my formation program. We aren't allowed to talk about sexual morality anymore. I don't trust the men around me. The sexual scandals of the future are going to become much worse than the sexual scandals of the past. I used to believe that the church is restoring herself after a dark period, but I no longer have that hope. I'm currently in seminary, and I don't want to represent the church publicly. I don't want to welcome people into the church. I wouldn't recommend the church to anyone. If you hope to believe and practice the Catholic faith, you will be beaten down by the church. And that was from an article in American Conservative magazine. Socialist aphorisms. Subvert the dominant paradigm, question authority, question everything, coexist. Up next, the ICE tip line. Thank you. The ICE tip line is 866-347-2423. The White House switchboard is 202-456-1111 or 202-456-1414. The Senate House switchboard is 202-224-3121. On the next episode, beware of moderates. And that concludes another episode of The Drill. Be honest, be smart, be beautiful, and always ask yourself, what is real? How do I know? And what should I do about it? I'm Ron, and that's The Drill.